It's funny how things work. We have giant metal vehicles that fly through the air. We have HD video that you can carry in your pocket. We have music that can be accessed at any time from devices that use touchscreens. But when something like this happens, something so stupid, something so simple, there's nothing to be done. Nothing that can be done, even with all our advances. I woke up 3 weeks ago in this place. It's a medium-sized room with concrete walls, floor and ceiling. In spots, the concrete is stained and cracked. A single light bulb hangs from the ceiling, and sometimes it flickers. It's not a very powerful bulb, but enough to see by. I woke up next to a woman. I didn't recognize her, but that didn't matter. I didn't know where I was. I didn't even know how I'd gotten here. There didn't seem to be any doors or windows or openings of any kind, just a concrete box with me and a sleeping woman. I woke her up after a few moments of dazed confusion. She didn't scream, which was my worry, and instead asked questions, calmly. "Where are we?" she asked. "I don't know." "How did I get here?" "I don't know." "Who are you?" I smiled. Finally, a question I could answer. "I'm Tom," I said. "Tom Green. I woke up here just a minute ago, and I was hoping you'd have an idea about it, but since you don't, well, we may as well get acquainted. You know my name, what's yours?" I stuck out my hand. She shook it. "I'm Melissa," she replied. "Melissa Dobbs. Last I remember, I was..." She froze and creased her eyebrows. "Did you hear that?" I listened, but didn't hear anything. I shook my head. "What was it?" I asked. It seemed like a... I don't know, like a thump." We sat in silence for a few minutes, listening for another noise. There was nothing but silence as long as we sat there. After so long, I just shook my head. "I don't think there's anything down here, Melissa," I said, "but if you did hear a sound, well, that must mean we're close to the surface." "The surface?" she repeated. "What do you mean, the surface?" "Well, look, the way I figure is we're probably underground. Where else would you hide someone in a concrete box? Another thing I'm wondering is how they even got us in here. It all seems like a dream, you know?" I sighed and leaned my back against the wall. This couldn't be happening. Not really. "I know what you mean," Melissa said. "It just doesn't seem real. This doesn't just happen. This can't just happen. This time I heard the noise too. It was like a thump, but a squishy thump. Like if you hit an animal with a heavy stick. Images of bleeding animals flashed in my mind. Pictures of infants being hit with hammers, dogs being hit with bars. I almost jumped up. I was surprised. Why would I think that? That wasn't normal. What was I even thinking? None of this was normal. This place and that sound and those thoughts. None of this was right. "Did you..." Yeah, I heard it," I interrupted Melissa. I started to ask if she was seeing things in her mind's eye, but she would think I was crazy. Being here was making me a little stressed, sure, but crazy? No. I wouldn't let her think that. Melissa and I spent the rest of the day discussing the situation and listening for the noise. It seems that it came at regular intervals, once every 10 minutes or so. I thought that maybe we were near an automatic machine. When the sound came, I would have the flashes of terrible things. It was disgusting and wrong. But it happened. And I couldn't help it. I wondered if Melissa too had the flashes, but I didn't dare ask her. If my only companion thought I was crazy, well, I didn't think that would end very well. We had thought it was some sort of hostage taking at first. We thought we had been taken captive by criminals. That's what we'd decided. It was a normal assumption. But about 30 thumps into the day, our thoughts changed. We were hungry. If the thumps really were coming every 10 minutes, then 30 thumps meant that we'd been awake for 5 hours. I could hear my stomach growling, and once I even heard Melissa's. We were thirsty more, though. My throat was sore and dry. But, of course, we had no water or food. We were talking about what we would do once we got free, when it happened. The interviews and books and maybe even movies that would come. We could both get rich off this. We tried to remain positive like that. Then suddenly, everything went black. It felt like only a second, and I didn't realize my eyes had closed until they were shut. Melissa and I woke up at the same time. We were confused. Somehow we'd blacked out at the same time, woken up at the same time, and... food, Melissa whispered. There's food and water. She was staring into a corner of the room, where before there had been nothing. Now there were 2 trays with food and water on them. My stomach grumbled, and I didn't care where they had come from or how we'd been blacked out. Let's eat, I said, grabbing our trays. We can talk about it in a few thumps. Melissa actually laughed. Funny how we can mark the passage of time like that, she said, grabbing her food, but I guess it's just as good as minutes or hours. Food was good. Warm, steak and potatoes, a scoop of ice cream for dessert, and a little bottle of water to drink. And the forks we were given were dull, very dull. No way we could hurt anyone with them, not that we would be able to, regardless, since it seemed that they could induce loss of consciousness whenever they wanted, and whoever they were. I got the feeling that once we were done eating, we'd just black out again, and the forks and trays would be gone. We ate in silence, and then my guess was confirmed. We lost our trays and our forks, and again we were just in an empty concrete box. We never actually talked about it, though we kept busy talking about many other things. After another 50 or so thumps, we went to sleep. It was hard at first to sleep with the thumps. But as with anything, you grow accustomed to it. You grow accustomed to the thumps and the flashes and the blackouts, just as people grow accustomed to planes and phones and iPods. This is adaptation. This is evolution. I don't know how long we slept, but every day there seemed to be less time between each thump. Each day, the food seemed to get a little better. The first day's food was good, but it seemed bland. Each day following, the food tasted better, as if a reward for longer time between thumps. This was conditioning. Pavlov would be proud. By day 10, there was barely any time between thumps. The food was delicious. We couldn't get enough. Melissa and I got along well enough. We were becoming pretty close friends, and at around day 5, we started having sex. We didn't love each other. We weren't looking to stimulate each other, but we were both adults and just wanted something to keep our minds busy. So why not sex? Day 12, though, things took a turn. They went bad. We were eagerly awaiting lunch. We were ready for the blackout, ready to delight in the delicious food we'd come to expect. We weren't thinking about escape. We weren't thinking about anything. Thumps, flashes, food, thumps, flashes, food. The flashes had gotten worse, so much worse. The thumps came so fast now. The flashes were in my head all the time. Babies flayed open and dead. Dogs' limbs severed and laying in pools of blood. Cats with their eyes pulled out and their organs ripped from their abdomens. All just animals. Dead animals. Their lives that had been so important before, now gone. Useless. Nothing. Now just a heap of bloody regret. This is my future. This is the death of all. Thump. Darkness. When I awoke, I didn't smell food like I was used to. Melissa was already awake, crying. "What's the matter?" I asked her. "Why are you awake already?" "I didn't fall asleep this time," she whispered. They came in straight through the wall. They were so hideous. They... She started to sob. "Calm down, hey? Hey," I said. I went to her and put my arm around her. She latched onto me, weakly. "Tell me what happened." "They don't have mouths, Tom, they don't have mouths," she cried. "They're not human. But the thumps come from their heads. We don't hear them with our ears, Tom. I never noticed before, but we hear them in our heads. Do you understand? They didn't bring food. They said that they'll keep bringing food from now on, but today they told me something else. But they had to stop thumping to talk to me, and once the thumping was gone, I didn't hear. I didn't want to. I begged them to stop, to bring it back. They stopped talking. Then they left. This is necessary. I held Melissa until she stopped crying and fell asleep. I thought about the changes we had now. I was trying to comfort her, but all I could think of was the flashes had stopped. I hadn't really realized that until that moment because I was so used to the flashes actually accompanying the thumps that I had given myself flashes. But they weren't coming anymore. Not really. Something had changed since mealtime, and it made me almost uncomfortable. No, I know it made me uncomfortable. I could understand Melissa panicking when the thumping stopped now, though I didn't think I would have freaked out nearly that badly. She was still crying. I'm sorry, she mumbled, pushing her face into my chest. I could feel her tears seeping through my shirt. I should have been able to talk to them, but But the Thumps, it's so strange when they're gone. I'm so used to them now. I understood perfectly. We spent the rest of the day solemnly, talking about what we would do when we got out, but how we possibly could get out. Things weren't normal. The thought that we might get out was beyond us now. We accepted that. We could live like this, at least for a while. Then one day, maybe in a month or a year, we might use our forks and dig into our wrists. Do they have thumps in heaven or hell or whatever lies beyond? We got food the next day. The thumps continued and the flashes remained silent. The food was better and life was good again. Melissa, though, she was shaken. Maybe it was seeing our captors that had her so on edge. Maybe they put something in her head. The flashes, I thought. Is it possible that they left my head and went to hers? Crazy. But crazier things had happened in here. Every day, Melissa got more nervous, more agitated. I couldn't understand. I tried to talk to her about it, but she would never answer my questions. She just looked at me and shook her head. Nothing's wrong, she would say. I'm just tired. This is denial. It happened on day 20. We fell asleep. We woke up and ate our food. We went about things as usual. I didn't know. If I had, I would have done something. Suffering alone is 1,000 times worse than suffering with a friend. I was finishing my dessert, and Melissa did it. Quick as lightning, she stabbed herself hard in one wrist, then the other. Then she shoved it in her mouth. She jammed it in her throat, pulling and pushing and grinding it in there, trying so desperately to kill herself, to end it. One wrist was bright red, but it hadn't drawn blood. The other she'd stabbed harder though, harder, and it had holes in it. The holes were deep, leaking, pouring blood. Blood that too trickled out from her mouth. I dropped my food and reached out to her, to stop her. She kicked me in the chest and I fell against the wall, and she just kept stabbing, cutting, choking with the fork. I didn't even realize I was screaming. The thumps had joined together by this point, making constant noise, and it was hard to hear over. Eventually, Melissa slowed and tried to force the fork down her throat further. She gagged and choked and retched, but it didn't come out. I got to her and pushed her arms away and reached in, but it was too far down at this point. Too far. My only companion, dying. And I wish I could say it was quickly. But she lay there, in pain, drowning in her own blood. I cried the rest of that day. I felt like doing the same thing. I thought maybe I would. The next day, maybe I would join her again. At least I wouldn't be alone. The next day came, however, and it didn't work out like that. I waited and waited. Eventually, the blackout came. I was eager to kill myself after a delightful meal. I just hoped I didn't mess it up. Hoped it wouldn't be as painful as Melissa's. I'd hate to be half dead on the floor, pissing and shitting myself, alone, for who knows how long. Fortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to mess it up. I woke up outside. It was dark. This wasn't right. No, I whispered. No one was in sight, but I could see the lights of a town in the distance. I was out. I'd made it out of my concrete prison. No. This is panic. This is change. I'm not ready for this. The Thumps were gone. And things had changed. Adaptation, conditioning, the Thumps were gone. And the flashes were back. Evolution. I wasn't used to the silence. It was driving me mad. The flashes didn't help. I knew what would make the flashes go away, though. The Thumps. They would keep the flashes away. Make me comfortable again. That was all I needed. And they'd been teaching me how to make the Thumps. They'd been teaching me since day one. I just had to... I grimaced, not wanting to think about it. But I needed the Thumps. What did I have to lose anyway? My only companion was gone. I stood, breathed deep, and headed for the town in the distance. G'day guys, I hope you enjoyed that story and thank you so much for giving it a listen. Remember, if you want some more scary stories, you can go to the Scary Stories for Late Nights playlist. Dusk Bowl has been a fantastic project to work on, and remember, if you've got any fanfic or fan art or any just questions about the series, feel free to email me at duskbowl.fm@gmail.com. I love every single one of you, and you've made being a microtuber probably one of the best experiences of my life. I want to give special thanks to my patrons, of course, being Lady Nevermore, Skulk Queen, Catherine Gordon, The Curator, and Stephen Stevens. If you see them in the comments, please say g'day. And to all of you, I bid you logs of love and shit shippers.